And we're back, part two of the Groupcast with Steve Gans, Adam Gaffen, and Jahmil Effend. So, right before we cut off, we were talking about fantasy and morally great characters. Now, Steve, you just said something right before we hit record. Could you restate it for the people? Because I actually think you really touched on a really good note there.
Well, Jahmil made the great point that heroes now are kind of dark. They're more cynical. You don't see these kind of Pollyanna-ish characters anymore, except in the only thing I can think of is comedy. I thought about the show like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Kimmy is this optimistic, upbeat, positive, come on guys, we can do it together if we just try. You kind of character, and all the characters around her are like, oh God, I just need a drink. Kimmy, will you shut up? You know, and the audience relates to those characters, not to Kimmy. And the other thing I thought of was look at the Luke Skywalker of the 70s and the Luke Skywalker that's portrayed in the Star Wars, for better or worse, today. That's, people don't, that kind of sunny optimism, glasses always half full attitude isn't something that people feel reflects life in 21st century America or the future that's coming. So that's going back to Adam's point, that I think all the genres reflect the time that they're in. There's very few things that are timeless and always hold up, but they're usually a product of their generation. And
something that I kind of want to, because I agree with all the points, but it's something that I think is kind of interesting. You said, and again, quoting Jahmil here, you said that a Harry Potter character couldn't exist in our world. I would argue that the Harry Potter doesn't exist in any real world. The entire universe of the Harry Potter franchise, literally, he's like a magnet, and there's a whole bunch of metal dust around him. Every time he moves, the entire world just goes around him. And I guess Harry Potter isn't that great of an example, just because I haven't really read the series. I'm just kind of going off the movies, but more of kind of what the examples that Steve was going with, kind of just like characters like Luke Skywalker that were portrayed in a certain light, and as they gradually kind of grow throughout the franchise, they're kind of shown darker. I think the reason for that is because they're kind of bringing it down to, I guess, a regular level. It's the idea that there is no like perfect God sapient thing, and I think that's not a negative thing to look at, but I think it's kind of the beauty. There is a difference between the person and their accomplishments or the person and their actions, and it's all a metric of society. You know, we can sit back and talk about the great things that George Washington did, but he also was a slave owner. But that's what they did at the time. So, you know, you can debate that back and forth on the character of the person, but it's just what they were doing at the time. And, you know, in the future, who knows? Maybe we'll have a person that's as close to Jesus in the next 10 years as we've gotten since BC, right? But then 300 years from that, we'll find out that he was eating cow or pig or some shit, and then at that time we don't eat meat anymore. The entire world is off meat, and now that guy's a villain. It just goes back and forth. Like the idea of the morally gray character, I don't think it's necessarily like I don't think it's a thing to kind of spite humanity. I think it's kind of like the beauty in it, that like everything that's black also has white in it, but everything that has white also has black in it. Like it's the duality, the dyad effect of just like life. Going back to Kubrick with what's the movie? The Machine. What is it? It's the military movie where like basically the first 15 minutes is like a comedy because it's like the guy is getting just like yelled at by the drill sergeant.
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. You know, look at the main character. He literally has a peace sign on his lapel and a kill, kill, kill markered on his hat, on his military cap throughout the entire movie. And anytime anybody asks him about war, he always says, well, I think it's like the duality of man. That's almost his answer throughout the entire movie. And I think Kubrick did that very purposely. It's just a dyad. Like, again, maybe I'm rambling onto the point, and I've already stated the thing, but I think it really is just it's more of a note of beauty rather than anything else. But I guess to act as my own devil's advocate, I think we really are missing the type of Harry Potter character, because like there should be kind of like a shining hope of beacon that we can look at and be like, yeah, why don't we be more like a Luke Skywalker? Why do we have to muddy him down and bring him down to our level? That should be something that we achieve to. That should be an idealistic we strive towards.
Yeah, I think one of the things I noticed, just in writing in general, especially with those morally great characters, is that you can have characters that people can look at as heroes. Like in my story, for instance, we have the High King Albion, who created this religion, created this society, and did so many great things. And in the story, you get the perspective of characters who believe in all of the heroics. And I think that that's the fun of writing. You can write someone that's super heroic, but as a reader, you know that there's no way that that's true, that all of these things and all of these positives are all true. And being able to tap into that from the author end is just saying, like, you know that, and let's get to explore the other half, those people who don't believe, and let's see that. Because one thing I enjoy is always religion. I think religion's a very gray area to explore, and the influence religion can have on culture, and then how that culture can then influence the rest of your story as far as the world building end. I love exploring religion. So I look at those morally gray characters, and I think morally gray exists within the realm of religion, within the realm of perversion of religion. People using their gods to further their own personal agendas, and seeing how that can influence your story. And you notice it in a lot of different medias. People use whatever the power mechanism is, whether it's the political structure or their religion. You see how that can influence the rest of society as a whole, and then how that story changes when you have that. One of my favorite scenes came in Game of Thrones when Cersei Lannister just took the throne after her son Tommen jumps out of the window and dies. To me, it was just crazy that she could just assume the position of queen, but who was going to stop her at that point? And her being able to just take the throne signified to me that the story had went so far. Everything had gone so far past what was traditional that the people were just accepting of her as the new queen. And it didn't seem like it was out of place. It seemed like it was perfectly within line of what should happen. That this person who had been so close to the throne could just take it when she finally had the chance. And I think that's the interesting part of having all of these different gray aspects of the story exist.
Just to give you a quick little promo, not spoiler heavily, but if I'm remembering correctly, your story was the one that introduced the concept of the false king, right?
Yes.
Heck yeah. Can you please go into that for the peoples?
So my story, there's a concept called the imposter king and imposter queens. Basically, every king and queen in the story, they at age 40, they ascend to become gods. So it was written years prior that when you became 40, you would ascend a mountaintop and become a god, and then join this high council of gods as you rule over the kingdom. And people saw imposters as those people who didn't make it to 40, because it's fantasy and there's kings and queens who die throughout the story. And if you died early before your ascension, you were looked at as an imposter. Your bloodline was seen as imposters, and you didn't deserve to rule the kingdom, which then would lead to more war within your kingdom because now it's less stable. So there was this idea that you can be an imposter just by dying, that everything that your ancestors had done prior to you no longer mattered because you died before your ascension. You were a false god. And it was an interesting idea to toy with, because when writing the story, so much of it hinged on becoming a god, these kings and queens, these princes and princesses who wanted to become gods. They weren't satisfied with just ruling their kingdom. And when they didn't, there was huge backlash for that. And I think that was one of the aspects of creating a gray world. What kind of world would just immediately dismiss the family because one person dies, no matter how their cause of death was? And I thought that was a fun idea to toy around with, and it's still been a fun idea to play with.
Yeah, I think it's the reason I asked you to bring it up. I think it's a genius idea and perfectly ties into the idea that we were talking about moral ambiguity. Because, imagine you have a generally amazing, well-respected, liked person. Let's say you have an Obama type of family, right? Let's say that his daughter, for whatever reason, who knows what, she like falls down when she's a kid, like breaks her leg and whatnot. She dies when she's like 38. Now Obama is looked at as like he was a false king and everything he does. And and I can imagine it even goes to politics. Like if they went and conquered a certain land, it's like, all right, well, your king was an imposter. Get out of here. None of that matters anymore. Like just the idea of what that would have to then turn people to do. I mean, like power as a whole is already kind of like a huge, like, big stick type of thing, do anything to get the power. But I can imagine it's even more intensified when you have the idea that if I mess up, it also nullifies my entire bloodline. The Rothschilds don't have to worry about that. All right, they can have 3 generations of all idiots. They're still gonna run the entire world. It doesn't matter. But like this idea is truly like, it really kind of like relinquishes that. It's the idea that really it forces the person to like really have to step up. So you can have the person that like thinks about it kind of like, all right, I like hold my bloodline. I have to make sure I live. And there's the other person who goes like, all right, me living means, oh, you gotta die. You know what I mean? Like whatever I gotta do to make it to 40 is what's gonna happen. If I gotta drink your blood, kill you for your kidney, it's gonna happen. It's a genius concept. It really is. I love it.
Yeah, and part of the idea really is looking at the power religion has over people.
Yes.
And I was like, finances matter, but finances aren't as powerful to move masses of people as religion is. Religion can really shape the way everyone in the society moves. This is the reason why people donate so much to the church. It's so impactful. So I was like, religion is the area where if you can nail that down in the story and get so many people believing, then you can have an interesting story. And part of the fun of it was talking about the people who don't believe, and exploring those characters who doubt, because as all religions go, there's always people who doubt. There's always people who don't know. And then not having certainty within a character create just an internal conflict that you can then explore. So for me, that was huge with our characters, being able to have some that are so certain in the religion, but others that question it, and some that don't know whether they should question or whether they should believe, and being able to play around with their decisions and how they don't align with what they want based off of what they believe the religion tells them. It's just a lot of fun, and I think that's an area where I love to explore.
Now, Steve, I know that you have a kind of a particular cool. We talked about religion a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
We did. Religion is a rich subject for drama, and I mean, in that situation, I was listening to Jahmil talk about with that kind of scenario in that kind of world. It is a genius concept for a writer because it immediately produces a conflict. Because if you're the king and you're 39, and my family has royal blood or aspirations to that, it serves me well to try to make sure you don't make it to 40 so that there's a place for us to slide in. So you've got natural conflict there. There's so many ways you could go with that. But yeah, religion is, it's part of the books that I write. So far, I'm writing all my books in the same world. They're set in a fictional Chicago suburb, and they deal with my main character, who's a middle-aged female cop who speaks sarcasm and profanity. That's all she speaks. And the kind of dark noirish world that she deals with. And oddly enough, I was writing this morning before we got on, and she wrote a scene where I wrote a scene where she has to go to the jail to interview a suspect who is extremely religious. And she doesn't really have, it's not clear what her religious beliefs are, but she's a typical kind of cynical cop. And after they have this very tense conversation, as she's leaving, he says, "I will pray for you." And she said, pray for yourself. I'll be fine. I'm not the one who raped a woman in a wheelchair. I mean, that's how tough she is. She's a tough broad. But religion was a big part of my first two books, which were connected. One was the sequel to the other. The villain in those is kind of a brilliant serial killer, and he recreates murders from Poe stories and leaves no trace and befuddles the cops. But one of the things he does is he marries a devoutly religious woman. He pretends to be a sincere, repentant believer, so that he can draw this woman in, and she marries him, believing him to be what he presents himself to be, so that he can exploit her beliefs and her faith to suit his own sinister ends. So religion is a huge deal. And if people will do, if you believe you've got God on your side, you know, you are capable of doing just about anything if you believe that's what God wants you to do. I don't remember who said it. It was probably someone like Richard Dawkins, but who said there are no atheist suicide bombers. You know, but if people believe God wants you to do this, they'll do it. Whether it's volunteering at the local homeless shelter, or feeding the hungry, or tithing 10% of your money, or killing someone who doesn't believe the way you do. Yeah, you can't write about human beings or a world in which human beings exist that doesn't have religion in some form, because it's part of us and it's likely to be part of us for a long time to come. So that's something I think about when I write my characters.
I think even with it ties into sci-fi. I think it was with Steve. I talked about this last time. There's a book called The God and the Machine. I can't machine in the world. Maybe I'm butchering the name, but the concept of it is a sci-fi, I think made in the 1930s, about these people that the Earth has been the Earth's crust has been, you know, scorched. Everything is unlivable. Everybody lives in underground bunkers. In these bunkers, there's advanced technology that keeps the society moving and people fed and nourished, XYZ. And for the most part, since people are kind of confined to the areas, this technology kind of lets them talk with one another, and it's kind of like a VR type of thing. Obviously, pretty genius for like writing in 1930. But then the real concept that is like really stays with you is that the people, for the most part, abhor religion. For the most part, they get rid of it. Society's advanced. They don't believe in religion anymore, textbook religion anymore. But then what happens is that as generations and as society progresses underneath these bunkers, they start shifting their religion to the technology, because they start forgetting how it works, right? I mean, like, even I have a degree in engineering. If you were to pick up an iPhone right now, I couldn't explain it to you like that. Not a chance. I mean, like, and it's just only going to get progressively further, and it's only going to worsen the higher our technology rises. Where there's going to be a 2% of people that actually understand how to use it, when in reality 100% of the people on the planet are actually utilizing it. So he kind of takes this idea and compares it to religion, which, if you think about it, is the same thing. You know, with all the secrets that the Vatican has, who knows what the things that they're hiding, but they're holding the secrets. So they're just like, I bet, just make sure to give us 10% of your money. You know what I mean? On the weekly. Pretty sure to, make sure you worship this picture, not that picture. Remember that. Our God is about love, and if anybody disagrees with you, you hate them, because that's how it works around here. it's again, it's almost like the dyad of humanity. It even translates into the things that we aspire to be.
Canticle for Leibowitz, anyone?
What was
that? Sci-fi book by Walter Miller, A Canticle for Leibowitz, and it's a post-apocalyptic world, and the church that survived is the repository of all technology, and they're the ones building a spaceship to get off the planet. Meanwhile, other technology is rising and mankind is about to blow itself up again. So going back to older sci-fi, Planet of the Apes, the old movies. Battle for the Planet of the Apes, I think it was. I'm trying to remember which movie it was.
The last one?
The last one where they're underground and they're worshiping the bomb.
Oh, you're thinking of the second one, Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've actually sat down and watched any of those.
I've seen them all 1 trillion times. That's one of the few subjects I have any expert knowledge in. Don't ask me to, change my tire on my car or fix a light bulb, but Planet of the Apes, I got you covered.
But there you have exactly that. The technology has become God. The worship of technology has become the religion.
It's happening again.
Yeah.
Look at AI. Have you all seen this MyHeritage app that's out now where it animates a photograph?
I don't get how people are doing that willingly. It's like, dude, come on.
Well, it's interesting. I saw the one where they animated Abraham Lincoln and Poe. I'm like, please make Poe smile. We don't know what his smile looked like. They didn't do it. I was disappointed, waiting for that. But I also started seeing ones where someone would post on TikTok. I haven't seen my dad smile in 20 years, and they look at they take the picture of their dad and upload it on the app, and he smiles, and the person's bawling. And I get it, and I guess it's a wonderful thing. But I thought, okay, we're already working on AI. We're already working on androids. I mean, even look at the android puppets at Disney. We've had those for decades now, and how realistic they are. How long before? And there's like the living dolls, the sex toys people buy. They're like mannequins that are anatomically correct, and fill in the blanks for yourself. How long before I'm a lonely single middle-aged guy, and I'm just, in my mind, Beyonce is the most perfect woman who ever lived, and if I could live and sleep with and talk to Beyonce, how happy I would be. My friends wouldn't see me. I'd smile when I went to work. I'd just be the happiest guy. How long before I can write a check on a down payment and make monthly payments to some company that will provide me with a life-size 3D animated talking physical replica of Beyonce, who is programmed to love me and to study me and to learn what I like and adapt to what I want her to do? How long before there's a catalog where you can shop for a wife? Oh, I'll take the Beyonce. He's going to marry the Marilyn Monroe. How far away is all this? This is why I'm thinking Philip K. Dick was the most prescient writer there ever was, because he dealt with what's real and what's human. That's the common thread through all his work. Replicants. Blade Runner doesn't look so far from the real 2019 anymore. It did in 1982 in the theaters. I was like, oh my God. And now we're here. I'm like, well, we're not far off.
We just need a huge
Is
pyramid.
that so far away?
Yeah.
Is that so far? When will I no longer need organic other living beings like you guys, when I could do a podcast with 3 other, you see where this is going? I can't help but think about this. And if society survives long enough, it's surely going to come, because there's money to be made in it. And if there's money to be made in it, someone will do it. And then, how do you program your kids to go out and commit crimes for you? I mean, where does it end? And at what point do we become irrelevant?
So to answer the first part of that, I think it's actually going to be sooner that people will be disappearing into VR full time, 24/7, rather than there being a actual AI existing outside.
Oh yeah, it'll happen. If you own if you know a teenager with a game system, that's already happened.
Right.
You can't get them out of the house.
So, but that's also the idea of where, the blurring of the line between humanity and not humanity, between the us and the other. That's such a rich topic in sci-fi.
Yeah.
Even I get into that in one of my books. One of the main characters, who is she really wants to be a good character. Okay. She really wants, she believes, it's my little meta conceit, that she believes in Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. She, from the perspective of her future, she's looking back and saying, I want that. Mm-hmm. So she wants to believe, and she does believe, and she wants to be good. This is also somebody who is a former assassin. That was her job. She's killed a dozen people on missions. So, Jahmil, back to your gray characters. I mean, she wants to be good, but she's done terrible things. But she's also having to fight against being classed as non-human because she's an enhanced human. She's had genetic manipulation. She didn't know about it. It happened before she was born, and she was never told. But, is she human? Is she not human? I borrow a line from Robert Heinlein, which is, it takes a human mother to have a human baby.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there is something that I immediately thought of. Jahmil, actually, were you about to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say it just brought up the idea in my head. Like, I don't write sci-fi, but it just sparked the idea of the church recreating Jesus Christ, bringing forth
They'll do it.
Jesus to life, and then flaunting forward that they have him, and that is the person that he's endorsing. He's endorsing this religion. He's returned. And then you have the story built for you of everyone else not being able to defend against it. You can't really say, if no one else has that technology, if no one else can make that same claim that Jesus didn't return.
And not only that, ready? Because we live in the modern age, right? So then Jesus, it would be like Buddy Jesus from Dogma. I don't know if you,
yes.
you guys, what I mean? It would be like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It would, like, you would turn down the figure. It was like, hey, try the new Coke. Jesus recommends it. It's like him being like, you know what I mean? And of course, going with the whole like dark humor thing. There'll be like one person that's like they're selling beer, and it's like Jesus on the cross. So then he wakes up and he was like, hey, and they're playing beer pong on the like crucifix. I'm telling you, that is 100% what they'll do. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember the comedian. It might have either been. I really can't remember it. But he was talking about that it was so ironic that the symbol for the church is Jesus on a crucifix, and they were saying
George
that
Carlin.
George Carlin, and they were saying that if he were ever to be brought up again and he was killed with a machine gun, people would be walking around with little golden studded machine guns around their necks, talking about this is the God that I love. It's like they're literally holding a torch device as the symbol of your religion of love.
Yeah,
that's outrageous.
The British comedian
No.
Go ahead. I would say the British comedian Alexei Sayle used to make a joke about, people, Christians, when they see each other, they make the sign of the cross and in church. But if Jesus were executed in modern times in the electric chair, when you'd go to church and go,
Oh, that's hilarious. Go instead of bowing down to get the bread of Christ, they would just put like the wet soap, the wet sponge on your forehead. May God be with you. May God be with you.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, man, that is
AI
funny.
makes. Yeah. I mean, look at deep fakes. You can fake anything now. If something extraordinary happened in my street when I was a kid and I filmed it on a film camera, if I happened to have one in the house when everyone didn't have a film camera in their pocket, you could go to the news and say, wow, this Bigfoot walked through this kid's neighborhood and here's the footage, and people would debate whether it was real or not. Now, thanks to CGI, I could have Bigfoot sitting next to me and I could film it and we could do an interview, and there's no way anyone would believe it because it's too easily faked. If you don't directly experience something yourself, you can't believe anything you see anymore, not in a photograph, not in a phone call, anything you hear, nothing in a film. It's already completely undermining what we think of as reality, and it's just going to keep going. And maybe
And
it's supposed to. Maybe just, not to be prideful or thinking out of self-interest. Maybe the AI being, the AI world, whatever that's generated, is the next evolutionary step for the planet. Maybe we're supposed to be obsolete like the woolly mammoth. I don't know.
I wrote a paper in like a while ago. It was called, like, I think I wrote it like Homo Robotica or something like that, and it was exploring the idea that that robots and like the idea of like AI might just be the natural evolution of like what things on the earth are,
Yeah.
because it's not like the idea of like the processor or a microtransistor, popped from a wormhole that like landed on us, and we were like, oh, what are we gonna do with this? I mean, we made it out of things on Earth. If you were to hit it with enough heat, it's gonna turn to dust. So from dust to dust, same thing, same analogy that we have for humans in the Bible. So like, there's no reason to say that, like, it's George Carlin's joke. Who's to say that the Earth didn't make us just to get plastic?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's to say that we're it? We could easily just be the step for the next thing to come. And,
yeah. How do we claim moral superiority to a machine? I have yet to hear of a computer taking another computer and
giving a swirly,
torturing it, attaching it to a car battery and questioning it, or beating it with an iron rod to get information. Maybe they are better beings than us, and maybe we deserve to go. Again, back to Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where it ends with Charlton Heston saying, "Fuck this," and detonating the Omega bomb and ending all life on planet Earth because they all deserve to die.
Gangsta, I need to watch that movie, man. What?
Well, I just ruined the ending for you.
Hey, listen, you know what's happening in the Titanic. Nobody had a question of what was happening at the end of the Titanic. That is the number one movie outside of, like, pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and now in the marketing, they do things like, if you go buy Planet of the Apes, the original, on DVD, the cover of the DVD shows the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand. I'm like, well, okay, if I'm taking my 8-year-old kid to see this for the first time, I don't want you showing him that. Come on, put some thought into it.
And it's iconic. Like, anytime anybody ever references, like, growing up, I don't even know. I haven't even seen the movie, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Because growing up, Fairly Odd Parents, anything on Nickelodeon, Disney, everything, every cartoon always had a reference to Planet of the Apes, and I didn't even know of it yet. Or even like the classic Terminator movies, which came out a little before my time, but thanks to the pop references by people that were of age when they were younger, watching it, and got inspired and made sure to put their references when they got older. But honestly, just there's something that I really want to get onto, and it's something that it sparked in my mind the moment you were talking about kind of like the fear of how like this technology can go on, and it's something that you talked about with Philip K. Dick, and I think that the thing that he really narrowed down on it was kind of that technology can really sand away the rough edges of life that really should be there in order for personal growth. What I mean by that is, like, I think everyone gets awkward. I don't think that's there's obviously people that have, like, different stages of others, people more introverted and extroverted. Obviously, everyone's different. But I think everyone has a situation of being awkward. And prior to cell phones, things like that, there was nothing you could do about it. If you were in an awkward situation, you had to, hey, you catch the game last night? Oh, weather's crazy, huh? Know what I mean? Now, whoop, no problem. Like, the moment you go into like a waiting room, everyone's like this. I mean, if you go to a red light and you just look around the corners, everyone's on their phone. You can't even do a quick little, hey, nice song, nothing. You can't do that anymore. And so what that's done to me is that's kind of taken away the rough edge of like awkwardness, which is like an emotion that could be thought of as negative, but in reality it's positive because it forces you to kind of like, get out of your comfort zone. And then my fear with the whole thing that you're talking about with the AI and the Facebook thing is, I'm a huge conspiracy nut and I'm a huge paranoid freak. So the moment I see all those like AI things, I'm immediately thinking of the future. You know, I'm thinking of like me getting beat up in like a holding cell, and it's like, oh, I never said that. Oh, you never said that? Look at this video, motherfucker. And I'm like, god damn it, how they get me? I'm immediately thinking of that. But the true aspect of it is that there's a lot of people that are going to be like, yeah, I haven't seen my dad in 40 years. You don't think I'm going to pay $4,000 to see him smiling again? That's no question. I'm doing that. And you can't, and that's where it kind of gets scary, because you can't deny that aspect. Even the most, you know, at the peak of nirvana level of spirituality, you can't deny that feeling of wanting to see a dead loved one. But at the same time, I don't think anyone can disagree that that's a very dangerous road to go down. Because the whole point of death is that we have to get, you know, it's the beauty of being human. You know, it's the fact that we know we're living and also know we're gonna die. It's a scary thing, but you can also turn into a very beautiful aspect if you so choose. Which again goes to the whole thing of like sci-fi being, you know, very optimistic. But I think if we take that option away, if we say like, oh no, dead isn't really dead, we can just keep on doing this forever, that's scary. Because it just keeps on taking things away that really should be adding to people's personal growth. Technology is supposed to be a thing that advances as a society and makes us deep, you know, think richer. You know, I think a lot of people, especially an article that I read that I thought that was really interesting. It was saying that people nowadays, like in the 60s, everyone thought, like Americans thought that America was number one and everybody else was the terrorist. And they were talking about that youth now think that's the opposite, and they believe that we're the terrorists in other countries, and that's kind of like seems to be like a common staple within youth. And of course, you know, it could be cherry picking, and obviously, you know how articles are. You know, I'm right.com, and I could easily find whatever I want to be to debate my point. But I thought it was an interesting concept regardless, because again, it's just the shifting of emotions and the shifting of ideals in society, and just again, there's a lot of things that I really believe are, and I might be a little old fashioned, you know, I'm young, but I came from DR. My family is very conservative, if you were to really kind of like label it as anything, you know, like the very Spanish machoism type of culture. And yeah, I can full-heartedly say that just, you know, the level of ranges and emotions, and if you don't really just conquer your own, you know, your own shit and like face it, then we're always gonna like be forced in a situation where we're constantly gonna be looking for more distractions, more content. Oh, did you see the new Marvels movie? Oh no, not yet. You know, and there's nothing against it. I love my Marvel movies, but that can't be the only thing. You know what I mean? Like I always talk to my friends that have just like that have like jobs, and I just like kind of like walking around like mosey. It's like, hey, listen, you need a passion. Not just like a way to make money, but a passion, like a reason to wake up, a thing that you're happy to do, even if no one's giving you money. You need a passion. You need a reason to wake up. And I don't think, I think that applies to a lot of people. And honestly, I don't even know where I went. I was talking about this and X, Y, Z.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, yeah, it makes things a lot easier for us, which isn't necessarily good. I worked in prisons for 25 years, and inevitably, I can't think of an exception, to be honest.
Oh, shit. Wait, I'm sorry, Steve. Damn it. It seems that we're hitting that again. Do you guys want to go for a third? I'm 1,000% up for it.
Sure.
I'm available.
Adam?
I'm going to have to switch headsets. This one is almost out of battery, but yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So this is part 2, part 3 coming right back at you. Steve R. Gans, Adam Gaffen, Jahmil Effend. We will be right back. I'm absolutely loving this conversation. 1 minute.